My name is Isabella, and my story begins in a small, sun-drenched town in Mexico. At just 19, I married a man named Michael. In the beginning, he was gentle and kind, and my parents believed he was a good, honorable man. He was an American citizen, and our plan was for me to join him in the United States after the wedding. A profound fear took root in my heart. I had never ventured far from the warmth of my home. The idea of air travel was foreign to me, and my English was broken at best. The days leading up to my departure were filled with tears. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving my family, especially my mother. She was my anchor, my confidant. We spoke every day, and she had a unique gift for soothing my sorrows. Her cooking, her laughter, her warm embraces, they were the fabric of my life. I couldn't imagine how I would survive without her. Before our move, Michael lived with my family for 3 weeks. He was reserved and spoke very little, which I mistook for shyness. When those weeks concluded, it was time to leave. I packed my essentials and a few precious photographs of my family. As a farewell gift, my mother gave me a delicate silver bracelet. "Let this be a reminder of me," she whispered. "Stay strong, my dear daughter." I clung to her, our tears mingling in a final, heartbreaking embrace. I had never seen her so distraught. Saying goodbye felt as though my heart was being physically torn from my chest. The flight to New York was arduous and long. I was nauseous, my eyes swollen and red from incessant crying. Michael was distant, spending most of the flight staring out the window, leaving me to drown in my own growing sense of loneliness. We landed in a cold, blustering New York. It was the dead of winter, and snow was falling in a gentle cascade. I had never seen snow before. Under different circumstances, its beauty might have captivated me, but I was too consumed by sadness and fear to appreciate it. Michael's father, Mr. Harrison, a stern-looking man who offered no smile, picked us up from the airport. His wife, Mrs. Harrison, was at home preparing dinner, Michael explained. Their house in New Jersey was small, dimly lit, and eerily quiet. I found my room and sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of my new reality crushing me. I already missed home, with an ache that was almost physical. Sleep eluded me that night. My thoughts were a whirlwind of my parents and my 2 younger brothers. A desperate urge to run back to them seized me, but I was bound by my new role as a wife. This was my home now. The following morning, Mrs. Harrison summoned me to the kitchen. She handed me a list of chores. "Clean the living room, do the dishes, cook the rice, and don't be lazy," she commanded in a voice devoid of warmth. I didn't catch every word, but I understood the message. I was not a daughter-in-law. I was a maid. I toiled all day, my back aching and my hands raw from the cold water. Michael offered no help. He simply sat with his father, drinking coffee and watching television. When I asked for a moment's rest, he replied, "My mother is very particular about cleanliness. Just try your best." Each day was a relentless repeat of the last. I rose early, cleaned, cooked, and maintained my silence. I didn't know how to refuse or how to advocate for myself. The fear of inciting anyone's anger paralyzed me. Mr. Harrison had a booming voice, and he would shout if I made the slightest mistake. I once burned the rice, and his yelling sent me fleeing to the bathroom, where I cried for an hour. Weeks bled into a month, and a deep sadness settled over me. Laughter became a distant memory. My conversations were limited to Michael, and even he grew tired of listening. The longing for my family was a constant, gnawing pain. I desperately wanted to call my mother, but Michael claimed the phone bill was too high, permitting me only 1 call per month. I anticipated that call as if it were a lifeline. When I finally heard her voice, I would weep, forcing a lie through my tears. "I'm doing well, Mama. Everything is fine." But nothing was fine. 3 months into this new life, I discovered I was pregnant. A flicker of hope ignited within me, mixed with a familiar fear. I thought a baby might change things, that it might soften their hearts and draw Michael closer to me. But I was wrong. "Now you must work even harder," Mrs. Harrison declared. "A strong woman works through her pregnancy." She offered no respite. I carried on with my duties, my body heavy and my spirit weary. Michael remained a passive observer, never defending me, never asking about my well-being. My morning sickness was met with, "Rest after your work is finished." One afternoon, a wave of dizziness washed over me in the kitchen, and I nearly collapsed. My hands trembled, and the room spun. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. I was exhausted, isolated, and terrified. That night, I cradled my belly and whispered to my unborn child, "You are not alone. I will protect you. I will find strength for you." The baby became my reason to hope. I began to dream of a different life, a life where I could learn English, find a job, and earn my own money. I imagined a small home of our own, a sanctuary free from shouting and fear. I was determined to break free. When my son was born, I named him Leo. He was perfect, with large, soulful brown eyes and a tuft of soft hair. Holding him for the first time, I felt a surge of strength I had never known. This was my son, and I would do anything to protect him. Yet Leo's arrival did not improve my circumstances. I cared for him completely alone. "He is your baby, not mine," Mrs. Harrison stated flatly, refusing to help. Michael returned to work, leaving me to manage the house and a newborn. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, and meals were often an afterthought, but I persevered. One day, I told myself, this will all change. At night, the tears would return. I would clutch the silver bracelet from my mother, whispering into the darkness, "I miss you, Mama. I promise I will be strong." The first year of Leo's life was the most challenging. The constant fatigue was bone deep. I was up several times a night to feed him, and my days were still filled with endless chores. I felt invisible, my existence reduced to a set of tasks. Mrs. Harrison showed no affection for Leo. She never held him or played with him. "Babies are noisy," she'd complain. "Keep him quiet." Mr. Harrison remained a silent, disapproving presence. One night, Leo fell ill with a high fever. Panicked, I begged Michael to take us to a doctor, but he was engrossed in a movie. "He'll be fine," he dismissed. "Just give him some water." Fear gripped me. I held Leo, crying and praying through the night for his fever to break. The longing for my mother was unbearable. I needed to hear her voice, but it wasn't time for my monthly call. "I love you, Mama," I whispered to the empty room. "I need you." That night was a turning point. I realized I couldn't wait for a savior. I had to save myself and my son. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and said, "You are a mother. You must fight." I began searching for ways to learn English and discovered a nearby community center offering free classes. When I told Michael, he initially refused. "You're too busy," he said, but I was persistent. After days of pleading, he reluctantly agreed to let me attend twice a week. The class was filled with women like me, immigrants from Mexico, India, Egypt. I was shy, but I was a diligent student. I learned simple, powerful phrases. "I need help. I want water. My baby is sick." Each new word was a victory. My teacher, Miss Albright, was kind and encouraging. "You are smart, Isabella," she would say. "Keep going." Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit. Slowly, I began to use my new language skills at home. Michael was indifferent, but Mrs. Harrison was disdainful. "Why are you trying to be something you're not?" she sneered. But her words couldn't stop me. I was doing this for Leo, for myself, and for our future. A few months later, Miss Albright informed me of a part-time job at a local bakery. I was terrified. "You won't last a week," Michael scoffed, but I went for the interview anyway. The bakery was a warm, welcoming place owned by a kind woman named Mrs. Gable. She patiently taught me how to serve coffee, bag pastries, and interact with customers. My English was far from perfect, but I compensated with a genuine smile and a willingness to learn. I worked 3 hours a day while Leo was with Michael or his mother. Every dollar I earned was a symbol of my growing independence. I saved my money and bought myself a proper winter coat and a small toy for Leo. Work gave me a renewed sense of hope. I started to dream bigger, a full-time job, perhaps some further education, and a small apartment for just Leo and me. But just as my life was beginning to brighten, Michael came home one evening, drunk and belligerent. He started yelling, waking a sleeping Leo. When I asked him to be quiet, his anger exploded. He shouted and threw a chair. Terrified, I grabbed Leo and locked us in the bedroom. As I sat on the floor, shaking, I knew with chilling certainty that we were not safe. The next morning, I told Mrs. Harrison what had happened. "You probably made him angry," she said, her voice laced with accusation. "You should learn to talk less." Her callousness was another blow to my already broken heart. A week later, an argument over money erupted between Michael and his father. As I stood in the kitchen holding Leo, Mr. Harrison turned to me, his face contorted with rage. "If you don't like it here, you can leave," he snarled, "but the boy stays." The floor seemed to drop out from under me. "I'm his mother," I stammered. "This is Michael's family," he retorted. "The boy belongs with us." That night, I held Leo so tightly it hurt. "No one will ever take you from me. I will never leave you." During my next call with my mother, I told her everything. We cried together. "Come home, Isabella," she pleaded. But I couldn't. I had no money, nowhere to go, and I couldn't take Leo out of the country without Michael's consent. I was trapped, but I refused to surrender. I continued to work, to learn, and to save. Miss Albright helped me apply for a legal residency card, independent of Michael. At the bakery, Mrs. Gable offered me more hours. I bought my own phone and began connecting with other women at work, learning about support groups for women in situations like mine. A new strength was blooming within me. I was still living in that house, but I was no longer the frightened girl who had arrived 2 years prior. I was preparing for our escape. Every night I would whisper to Leo, "One day we will have our own home. One day you will smile every single day. I promise." 2 years had passed. I was no longer the quiet girl who cried in silence. Fear was still a frequent visitor, but I had learned to face it. My voice was small, but I was finally using it. Leo was a boisterous 2-year-old, his laughter the soundtrack of my life. He was the light that pierced my darkness. At the bakery, Mrs. Gable had come to rely on me, even entrusting me with simple paperwork. My English had improved dramatically. I also found a dear friend in a coworker named Sophia. She listened to my story and told me, "You are not alone. You are stronger than you think." It was Sophia who told me about a support group that met on Saturdays at a local church. I went, my heart pounding with nerves. The room was filled with women from all corners of the world, each with her own story of struggle and resilience. A kind woman named Diane led the group. For the first time, I shared my story, my voice trembling as I spoke through tears. But there was no judgment in that room, only understanding. The group became my sanctuary. Diane connected me with a free legal aid service. They explained my rights, assuring me, "No one can take your child from you. You have the right to be safe." That night, I reflected on the years of fear, silence, and emotional abuse. A profound shift occurred within me. It was time to move forward. With the help of my support system, I applied for a subsidized apartment for low-income mothers. I saved enough for the first month's rent. One afternoon, while Michael was at work, I packed our meager belongings, my clothes, Leo's toys, and my mother's silver bracelet. As I was leaving, Mrs. Harrison stood in the kitchen. She simply said, "You'll be back. You need us." But I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I would never return. My new apartment was small, but to me it felt like a palace. It had 2 rooms, clean walls, and a window that welcomed the morning sun.
I laid a blanket on the floor for Leo, sat down, and wept tears of pure, unadulterated freedom. The beginning was tough. Juggling work, childcare, and household responsibilities alone was draining, but this was a different kind of tired.
It was a tired born of purpose, not oppression. For the first time in years, I had peace. One day, a letter arrived from Mexico. My mother had passed away. The grief was overwhelming. I felt a deep sense of guilt for not being there, for not calling more often. But then I remembered her final words to me. "Stay strong, my dear daughter." I held Leo close and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm doing my best." I made a vow to live a full and meaningful life for her, for Leo, and for myself. Months turned into a year. I continued to work and save. Leo thrived in daycare. One day, Mrs. Gable said to me, "You've come so far, Isabella. You should think about managing this place one day." A genuine smile spread across my face. Michael tried to contact me, pleading for me to come back, insisting that Leo needed his father. My response was polite but firm. "No, you had your chance. I am doing what is best for us now." The scars of the past remain. I still cry sometimes, especially when I think of my mother. But these are the tears of healing, not of fear. Some days are still a struggle, but when I wake in the morning and see Leo sleeping peacefully beside me, I smile. I make my tea and begin my day. This life is simple, it is honest, and it is ours. I may not be wealthy, but I have peace, I have freedom, I have a son who adores me, friends who support me, and most importantly, I have found myself. And that is more than enough.